Welcome to the third segment in the 3 levels of leadership. This is the one that nobody wants to talk about, but also makes the biggest difference in your life. This is the private, what goes on in your own head, and how to hack your own mind. Now, some of that is about understanding the structures of your experience, your internal experience, because your internal experience, your subjective experience, does have structure, it has coding. And if you have the right access to that, then you can rewire yourself. There's also a sense in which life is a game played between the ears. So the things you say to yourself, the thoughts you have about yourself, which, don't be alarmed by this, but it's all self-hypnosis. Every thought you have is self-hypnosis. Everything you say to yourself is self-hypnosis. Every way you think, anytime you're imagining something, that's self-hypnosis. Now, hypnosis is a weird word, but anytime you direct someone's experience with language, that's hypnosis. And how often do you say stuff to yourself? Maybe you say, of course I'm going to be successful. This is just another learning experience. Or maybe you're saying other things that are less empowering. Maybe you're saying that you're never going to be successful, or nobody likes you, or what have you. Or, I'm going to blow it. I don't know what it is for you. What I do know is that your internal subjective experience, your private leadership, meaning how you lead yourself, is the most important. It's going to be where the rubber meets the road. So I'm going to give you some pretty geeky distinctions around this, meaning a deeper level of understanding around it, because I've spent 25 years in this domain. And my whole job in the last 25 years has been finding ways to make it more approachable for you to be willing to access those aspects of your mind and understand that you actually need to access those aspects of your mind, and for you to be the master of your own mind. So we're going to get into all sorts of structures internally. First, I'm going to lay out several principles. So this segment is going to be in 2 parts. The first, I'll be laying out some principles and some understandings, because the truth is, every human being is a philosopher. We all live by organizing principles. The question is just, are we good philosophers, or are we not so good philosophers? And what are those principles that we want to live by? And then we organize our behaviors around that. And then, what's our internal thinking around that? But there's also some things like visualization and all sorts of things. Your reticular activating system. There is the science of and the biology of the mind, and where that intersects. And if you have any questions about this, the truth is, every time you have a thought about yourself, there's a chemical set that's released. So you have a positive thought about yourself, there's a set of chemicals that get released. If you have a negative thought about yourself, or about your future, or about what's happening, then another set of chemicals is released. So the thought biology, the chemical, brain chemistry, psychology relationship is pretty well proven. And it goes both ways. You can certainly take something that will alter your brain chemistry, and you can have a thought that will alter the chemical sets in your body. And both are true. And so this will give you access to that. And I said this segment would be in 2 parts. The first part will be the philosophy, the principles. The second part will be about practices, things you can take on, exercises you can go through. Now, the second part, I advise you not to be driving, not to be distracted, not to those things, because there will be some actual specific visualizations, some exercises, some things I will take you through in your own mind that will assist you in creating greater velocity in being your own leader, having leadership internally. But for this first part, you can just simply listen, and you can begin to imagine all the ways in which it applies to your life. Let's get to it. So far we've covered the public, the most external. And to do that, we simply touched on presentation and platform skills. There's a lot more to public leadership than presentation and platform skills, but this is what I thought would be most immediately valuable, useful, and applicable to you in your life and in your business. And then we talked about the personal. And And I gave you some exercises, some distinctions around how to build rapport with people who you had nothing in common with, perhaps whom you didn't even like. But I also gave you some distinctions around ethics in that domain. And now we're going to talk about the most private, the internal, your own mind, and how to hack your own mind. And within that, the most important distinction, because it relates to all the others, is charisma versus presence. Presence versus charisma is one of the things I want you to really drill down into yourself, because charisma can be faked. And we'll talk about how to manage your state, certainly. But true presence comes from a lack of internal self-acceptance, internal alignment. So let's just talk about what we're going to cover in this segment. We're going to talk about presence versus charisma in even greater detail. We're going to talk about how to hack your own mind, your internal code, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, linguistic, and time, and how to create internal alignment using those distinctions. And we'll talk about the role of self-esteem. We're going to have you visualize like an Olympian. And we're going to have you turn those voices in your mind, in your own head, into your own cheerleaders rather than your criticizers. So if you're ready, let's get to it. The primary distinction I want you to have is that communication skills are physical skills. They're physical skills. Now, how many times have you wanted to learn a physical skill, whether it was skateboarding or tennis or skiing or racquetball or who knows what it was, but a physical skill, a skill that required physical commitment. Maybe you skinned a knee. Maybe you fell down. Maybe you got yourself wet. Maybe I don't know what it was, but maybe you were trying to learn golf and you just were horrible at it at first, but you stuck to it. The big myth about communication skills and about how to manage your own mind and about any sort of thing around personal development, and by the way, a lot of people make a lot of money marketing to this, saying that you're going to transform your life in a weekend. Well, that's not true, because the way you communicate with yourself is a communication skill, and they are physical skills. And we're going to talk about how to navigate your interiors, and that is also a physical skill. Just like you need to learn how to navigate an airplane console or a skateboard or drive a 6-speed with paddle shifters on the steering wheel. Whatever it is for you is fine. But just know that we're also dealing with physical skills in the next segment. So when I say that, what it means is it's going to be uncomfortable at first. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make yourself wrong for that, but you're not. Would you beat yourself up over the fact that you hadn't learned how to play golf and, with no handicap in 24 hours? Would you? Of course you wouldn't. That would be ridiculous. Would you think that you were, somehow an aberration because you didn't learn how to play tennis well enough to compete at Wimbledon this year, having never played tennis before? Of course you wouldn't. That would be silly. Would you judge yourself as unlovable or weird or unworthy or somehow if you didn't learn how to create an app that everybody loved within 48 hours? No, that would be ridiculous. And yet we make the same judgments about ourselves around communication skills. And I want to stress that I also mean this also applies to communication skills within our own mind with ourselves. So within this segment, I want you to really, 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 and I mean really, after 25 years of experience and 460 clients just in the last decade through 6-month programs, I want to reinforce that communication skills are physical skills. You need practice. You need reinforcement. You're going to make mistakes. You need practice partners. You need someone to play with that will help you. And I can't stress that enough. So there's a difference between state management and internal alignment. Charisma, state management, you can You can go to a Tony Robbins seminar and you go, yes, 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 yes. You can walk on fire. You can learn to manage your state. You can simply take a 5-hour energy drink. That will affect your state. You can drink a cocktail. That will alter your state. You could do a jumping jack, or 10 of them, or 20 of them, and that will alter your state. You can eat food, and that will alter your state, your emotional state. These are state management. You can meditate. That will alter your state. You could listen to a song. That will help you manage your state. That's charisma. You could put on a suit, put on the right shoes, pump yourself up in the bathroom, and go and give an amazing talk. And people might be drawn to you. If you're attractive, you have the right stylist. You get yourself pumped up in just the right way. You have the right amount of focus. It's sort of a crapshoot. And you could do that. But true presence, the thing that will have you be effective when you're dealing with your team or your employee or your investment in your someone who's investing in your company, or that girl or boy you're incredibly attracted to, man or woman, you know what I mean. The thing that will have people drawn to you all the time is true presence. Presence comes from a matter of internal alignment, meaning a lack of self-doubt, meaning that you are fully accepting of yourself and willing to see the truth about yourself. And that, my friends, is a matter of self-esteem. That's a matter of knowledge of your efficacy and feeling you're worthy of receiving. And those are two aspects of self-esteem we will drill down into in the second segment of this third part. But how to hack your own mind is knowing your internal code, your visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, linguistic structures, and your orientation to time. Now, everybody codes experience in the same way. They see pictures, they remember or hear sounds, they feel things. And then, of course, olfactory and gustatory, they smell things and they taste things. But then there's language and time. Now, let's just reinforce that this is nothing new. Gautama the Buddha said 2,500 years ago that we have the 5 sense tools. Right? We have the senses of sight, sound, feeling. We smell and we taste things. And then the language and time, we could just say what he said, which is that, and that's imagination. Let's just lump it up as that for now. But these are real things. We're not actually experiencing reality. We are experiencing our internal representation of reality. Immanuel Kant said this well over 100 years ago, over 200 years ago, that we don't have access to reality. We have access to our subjective experience of reality. This is actually the good news. It's the good news. Because as we imagine things, we know that that's not reality, so we can alter it. This might scare some of you, but it really is the good news. Police know that if 5 people give the same account of an event, that they're lying. They got their, quote, story straight, end quote. Some people will remember it in different ways. They'll focus on different aspects. Why is this important to you? Well, having access to this internal code, how you remember something or how you're imagining something in the future, say a talk you're about to give, or how something is going to go with somebody, or something you're simply making up in your head because somebody hasn't responded to your email. Those are all things you can access with enough metacognition, meaning awareness of your thoughts. Now, I've worked with a lot of clients who say, well, I'm horrible. I can't stand thinking about my thoughts. It's terrible. Well, that's not truly being objective about your thoughts. That's judging yourself. That's different. I'm actually talking about having metacognition, being one level above your thoughts, seeing them as if they were objects in your awareness, because they are. And, of course, we're going to have you visualize like an Olympian. And those voices in your head, the thoughts that you sometimes are out of your awareness, sometimes you're in your awareness. Maybe you don't even want to admit them to yourself, let alone me right now, or your loved ones, we can actually turn those to your advantage. But it's all about understanding your internal codes and rewiring that. We're going to talk about the role of self-esteem. And first, let me just say that self-esteem has two components. Those two components are self-efficacy, or knowledge of your efficacy, or knowing that you are competent to handle whatever life throws at you. And self-respect, or you worthiness of receiving, feeling that you deserve good things in your life. Now, these are two tracks. Most people collapse the two. And let me tell you why that's important. First of all, self-efficacy is about results. It's about the practical. It needs to be externally referenced or focused. You need feedback. The other is self-respect, or worthiness of your receiving, is about meaning. It should be internally validated. What happens when you confuse the two of those, practical and personal, is somebody gives you feedback and then suddenly you take it personally. You, rather than going, oh, how can I be effective there? You think, gosh, maybe people won't like me. And the truth is, who cares if people like you or not, as long as you're effective with them? Well, that's a harsh way of putting it. But the truth is, these distinctions around self-esteem, your self-efficacy, and meaning your knowledge of your effectiveness and your willingness to get feedback about that so you can simply be more effective as a practical matter, is separate and distinct from your internal sense of validation and the thoughts, the feelings that your worthiness to receive. Self-efficacy is about value, which is always variable in the marketplace. Self-respect is about worth, worthiness, which is universal and always priceless. So we're going to get into all these aspects in this segment. We're going to get into how you encode your internal experience. We're going to get to self-esteem. And all of that includes communication with yourself and how to hack your own mind. We're going to pause here, and I recommend you not drive the next segment.